What if I told you legal support could be not only affordable but profitable for your small business? Well, it can. Profit from Legal is a new service from Executive LP designed to help small to medium businesses use legal support to become more profitable. For more information, subscribe to the Profit from Legal podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts today. Or visit profitfromlegal.com. That's profitfromlegal.com. This is an attorney advertisement.
Okay, here we go. Another episode of Marketing Management Money. This is Ryan Murray and Ryan Owens. We are going to walk you through the topic of data-driven decisions today. And this is kind of a, it feels initially like it's going to be a little bit of a snoozer where you're like, oh boy, data-driven decisions. Wow, I mean, you guys picked a winner for today's topic. But honestly, in business, this is super important and most of the time overlooked.
Oh, for sure. And the cool thing about this topic, to help it not be so dry and a snoozer, as you put it, is we've got a lot of great examples for this one that I'm excited about sharing.
Okay. So I want to kick it off with one of those examples. And this is, I was working with a company, and they were getting ready to hire a web development company.
Okay.
And so they kind of shopped around a little bit, and they settled on this company that they thought, they're like, look, these guys are legit. This is what we want. This is perfect. And then when I was working with them, I just asked them the question. I just said, hey, have you gotten any references? Like, huh? What do you mean? I'm like, did you ask them for like other customers that they've built websites for?
That they've worked with.
Yeah. And they're like, huh, that's an interesting idea. So they went back to them. And I mean, like, the contract was ready to go. They're ready to sign on the dotted line. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you think about a website, it's several $1,000s investment. Yeah. And that's usually to kind of kick things off. Like this was significant to this small business. And so, they're getting ready to sign on the dotted line. And they asked, they're like, oh, by the way, can we get some references? Well, the company was kind of standoffish and a little bit put out. And they're like, I thought we were ready to go. Like, why are you backing out? Or, is something wrong? And they're like, no, we're just, we met with one of our advisors, and he said that he wanted to see some references. And,
sure.
And anyway, they struggled to produce quality references. Like,
really?
Yeah. And two of the references that they came up with were references that were kind of like their own businesses in a sense. Like they had kind of a little bit of a stake on it, and so it wasn't really this kind of third party situation, right? And and I looked at it and I'm like, don't go with these guys. Like, this is a bad situation. And so, they backed out. Obviously they got the lashing, the verbal lashing of, oh, we spent all this time on you, and, you just were dragging us along. Like, don't be intimidated if someone's getting mad, especially if they're not holding up their end of the deal. But, they backed out, and they went with, it was their number 2 choice. And they did the same thing. They went to him and they said, hey, can you provide some references? They're like, yeah, we're happy to. And it was like almost immediate, and they were able to get on the phone and call these people up, and they say, hey, what's your experience with working with them?
Very good.
It was positive, and they went ahead and moved forward. And so when we're talking about data-driven decisions, we're not always talking about, hey, you need to, bust out the spreadsheet, and you need to have, understand algorithms and how to compute them. Yeah. Like, data is just getting reference points.
Right.
And, in this example, it was like, hey, get some reference points of, are these guys legit? Are they worth doing business?
Yeah, it doesn't matter necessarily where this data ends up, right? If it's in your own brain and that's how you want to roll, fine. I mean, ideally, it's better to kind of have notes, and especially if you have a management team or something like that, so everybody can review what's going on, right? But if it's something as simple as talking to some customers or what have you, then that's good, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, super telling that this first company was kind of put out about being asked about references. When people get defensive, it's an indicator. It's not necessarily always true, but it's an indicator that you've put them on their heels, right? That this isn't going in their favor anymore, and so they're ticked off about it. They're not going to let this. They're not just going to open the doors and be like, actually, you're going to be our first customer. You know what I mean?
And everyone has to have a first customer. There's nothing wrong. If you say, hey, I need references, and they're just like, I'm going to be honest with you. We're just kind of starting out, and, we don't have a lot to go with, but they should offer something in return. Like they should offer, a money back guarantee or, significantly discounted or something like that.
Right.
To make up for the fact that there's we can't produce the necessary data that you want. You're taking a risk on us, so therefore we're going to mitigate that risk somehow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you do that in all kinds of scenarios in your life, right? Whether you're buying a home, whether you're looking at different schools to send your kids, you look for all of, like you said, you look for all of these reference points to be able to make better decisions based on. The more reference points, the better.
Yeah.
Unless you get stuck in analysis paralysis.
Wait,
we're going to save that part for the end, though.
I was going to say we're going to get into that, but let's still keep it on the up and up, the happy side for a second.
No, I actually really love this topic. I have been in so many different scenarios in my life, and especially in small business, as I've consulted different startups or small businesses. It's come up often. At what point do we kind of draw this line, right? Yeah. How far do we go in gathering data before we make these decisions? And
before you even go there, I'm gonna throw you for a little loop here for a second.
All right.
What types of decisions should we use data for in the first place?
Everything.
Yes. Everything. And the reason why I want to go here for just a second, and then I'm going to let you go back to it, but I'm just going to bring up this one example that I was working with another company, and they had a graphic designer, and we went through and we showed the graphic designer how to use data to make sure that their brand was consistent. And it was data points of, okay, are you using the correct fonts? Are you using the correct colors? Are you using the correct size? Are you consistent throughout? And all of a sudden, their brand, it dramatically improved because they were using data. And that was a graphic designer. That's not, you think, oh, graphic designer, it's creative, it's not data. No, there's still a data side to it. So I just wanted to point that out.
No,
I'll let you jump back in.
No, I'm glad they did, because that's exactly kind of where I was going to go with this. Is like, there has to be this shift essentially, right? In what we perceive as data, right? Like that's kind of how you open the episode. It's not always just about crunching numbers through formulas in an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
It's taking these reference points and evaluating them. How valuable is this? How credible is this?
Sure.
How much weight do I want to place on this point? And then making decisions based on that. I was working with a startup that was in the wedding registry kind of a world, right?
Okay. You got to be a little bit more clear, because when you say wedding registry, I don't picture a company. I picture a service that major retailers offer.
So this was kind of an in-between to make it really easy for people attending a wedding or any type of it didn't actually.
So they did all the legwork on the registration, so you could figure out what gifts to get them easily.
Yeah, and you'd be able to link it to different big companies who also had their own individual registry, right? Okay. So you could take all of this and just consolidate it into one, and then the other side of it was that
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and the other side of it was that people who were wanting to buy things off of the registry or donate money or what have you, again, whether this was for a wedding or otherwise, they were able to do it in a much more personal way, rather than just being like, go to www.I'mGonnaBuyStuff.com and click buy, and then it shows from Karen and George.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
So they were able to personalize this online purchase or this online donation kind of thing.
Yeah.
It actually was pretty cool. But when they were starting out, as they're gathering their data points, like, do we have a target market here? Is this what our target market wants to see? So when they first started out, they were actually, I can't remember exactly what they were doing. It wasn't that though. And as they went out and were gathering these data points, they ended up pivoting hard and came out with this new type of a product because of that decision, because of those decisions to go through and reach out to some of the people that they had already worked with, some of their current customers or people that fit the demographic that they believed would be in their target market. They were able to save themselves a lot of time and money and probably save their business ultimately, right?
Yeah.
And we see that time and time again, where if you take the time and do it right, I mean, we say that all the time. If you take the time and do it right, it can have a massive positive impact on your business. If you don't take the time and do it right, it can have a massive negative effect on your business.
Well, and here's what I love is, you talked about how the data forced a pivot in the company. We just finished the last 2 episodes that we did in our podcast series were on reasons why businesses fail. And, pivoting wrong was, that's one of those top reasons. And, so as you're sitting here and you're just like,
or not pivoting.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of summed that up when I was saying pivoting wrong is I'm just like, okay, pivoting early or not pivoting or, pivoting too hard or,
or too late.
Yeah.
Blockbuster. Hollywood Video.
No. That's, those are still viable businesses.
MySpace.
and so, when you look at the data should force change in your company or should confirm that you're going to stay the course.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at these data points, it should kind of make you uncomfortable a little bit, where you're just like, oh, I guess that's what we should be doing. Huh. Okay. We're going to do this a little bit differently. In fact, us recently, I'm going to make it personal. You said at the beginning, we're going to show lots of examples.
Yeah.
I'm going to use us as an example here for a second. So we've been doing our podcast show for, oh my goodness, for a year and a half, 2 years.
Year and a half.
Yeah, year and a half.
Roughly.
Yeah. So we did the first year of the show and we had a format. And after doing, talking with some of our listeners and our audience and kind of getting some feedback, we decided to update the format of the show based on specific information that we were given. And as a result, we had more engagement because people could kind of pick and choose how they wanted to consume the show.
Yeah.
And so, it was a data-driven decision.
Yeah.
And by data, we're sitting there, like counting tick marks, zeros and ones or anything crazy like that. It literally was talking to the customer and saying, hey, what is it that you want?
Yeah.
And then it was talking to others in the industry, other podcast hosts, and saying, hey, what's worked for you? And then marrying the two into something that, made sense for what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and it refined what we do. It put us on a better plane.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to do that again.
Oh yeah,
in
for sure.
A year or two.
Yeah,
I don't know when, but we'll keep refining that.
And for a number of reasons, right? And I believe this is universal to all small businesses or startups or what have you. Again, using us as the example, as we grow and change and modify our outlook on business by working with other small businesses and things, the old ways of doing things may not fit what we evolve into. And the same goes for our customer base. As things happen in the world and whatnot, as our customer base changes and grows, then our current format may not fit them.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is in business as well. You got to have your finger on the pulse of your market.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's a living, breathing thing. I love that phrase or that analogy. I think it's so on the nose.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to talk about data in sales. So a lot of times people think that sales is just, you go in, you get it done. You've got to have that sales personality. And there's a lot of truth to that. Some people, they naturally excel in kind of a sales environment.
Right.
They enjoy it. They enjoy the challenge of closing the deal. But there's also a lot of data that can go into this. And so if you have a sales team that's not your traditional salesperson, they don't have that stereotypical where they're just kind of almost annoying, in your face, aggressive type sales personality, which that's not a common personality. Most people that are on a sales team are more like, I just kind of like to talk to people. I don't want to pressure them into the sale. And I'm like, there's a lot of value in incorporating data into this strategy. Enough value that I'm going to just call this out as its own little mini episode inside of the episode.
Ooh.
I know.
It's a first.
But the importance of using data in your sales process, because there's a process that resonates with your customers. And
Right.
so if you have a sales team, or you're over a sales team, or you are the salesperson, look and see what the interaction was like. And take notes, every interaction that you have, and look at it and look for patterns and look for things that you can duplicate, and just keep refining and refining and refining. And you will find that you're going to spend less time trying to be super aggressive, and you're going to spend more time understanding what is really going on. Now, technically, all I'm describing here is the sales funnel process.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, okay.
And refining that.
Yeah, refining that sales funnel process. If you start with a certain number, and then, that's going to be your leads, this is how many people we're going to reach out to. And of those people that we reach out to, I'm going to get a small percentage that are going to, come back and be interested.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm doing a cold call email campaign, I would expect to see about 1% to 2% that's going to reply to those emails. And so
Right.
if I send 100 emails out, I get 1 or 2 that say, oh, okay, I would like to learn more. If I send 1,000 out, then I should get 10 to 20 that say, oh, okay, I would like to learn more. And then the follow-up is, okay, now I'm going to engage with these people. Well, of those 10 to 20, if I'm doing a good job of closing, then, maybe I'm going to close 6 of them. And so I send 1,000 emails out. I get 10 to 20 responses. I follow up directly with those 10 to 20, and I'm able to close 6 of them. And it's not that I'm pushy. It's just that I've narrowed it down to who's interested in what I have to offer.
Right.
And this same process works if you want to use social media. It's like, okay, how many posts do I have to put out there, and how much engagement do I have to get on my posts? And from that engagement, how much follow-up do I have to do? And then how am I able to close it? And it becomes a numbers game. And if you can calculate it, then you just plug in whatever number you want. You're like, oh, okay, I've got to post 17 times before I will get someone who wants to engage with my company, or, whatever the case may be. I'm just making up numbers on the social media
Right.
thing, but,
Right.
like that's what it is. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It 100% is a numbers game. I love how you broke that down. There are 2 things. Number 1, you definitely do not want to get stuck in analysis paralysis. That is so easy at this point in the game, especially if you're a nerd like me, that you start to get a hold of some of those numbers, and it's like, yeah, now we can make some real decisions. And it's like, oh, mate, but I can make an even better decision if I just have this little extra chunk of data. And so we're going to go out and get that. And then it's like, ooh, but wait, if I do this, then maybe I can understand this piece of my target market that I don't yet while I'm doing this. And it's like, okay, so we're going to go out and get that. And 6 months later, it's like, wait. I have one more thing, just one, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so not everybody's that way, just like not everybody's your stereotypical type of a salesman, but that's still, regardless of whether you have that tendency or not,
It creeps in.
it does. And you want to be aware of it. Right. And I love how you talked about different percentages or potential percentages of closing in a sales funnel, right? Moving customers from one stage to the next. And I think this ties in really, really well to the analysis paralysis piece, at least it's something that, as I've worked on it, has been a game changer for me. Is, you have this you send out 100 emails, you have this 1 to 2% that gets back with you, and you're like, yeah, we might want to do something. Being able to take those 1 to 2 responses, or the 1 to 2%, and move them to the next level and see what happens, and then making decisions to adjust your process based on what you find happens. To be able to turn that quickly will keep you out of analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
But you also need to not just fly off the handle and be like, oh, we got one response back. They said they didn't like it, so we're changing everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's a matter of, okay, let's get some meaningful data behind this decision. You may have 3 or 4 responses come in, and you may have a suspicion that's like, oh, we should probably change this. So get a few more points. Once you confirm that, then make it happen, right? Yeah. And then you'll find out, did it work? Did we make the right move? Because then your next couple of responses will come in and they'll confirm it, or they'll say, whoa, what are you doing? You know what I mean? For me, what that does is not only does it mitigate the analysis paralysis piece, because you have to keep moving, right? As long as you're conscious of the fact that you need to continually improve your process and change, then it keeps you out of that space. But also, it'll show you any, in psychology, it's called confirmation bias, right? It'll show you any of these points where you're finding the answer that you want to find. And that's actually a big problem with some of these data-driven decisions. Is in small business, we know how we want it to go. We know what we want. We know how we would solve our problem. But that's not necessarily how our customers would want their problem solved or would solve their problem, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes we can find false answers to our problems because that's what we're looking for. And so we essentially call out to the universe, and you say, give this to me. This is what I want. And the universe is like,
power of intention.
Yeah, right. The secret. But in all seriousness, confirmation bias is a thing. Like, you subconsciously will do things that cause you problems, and you'll find that out quickly, right? And so staying out of analysis paralysis by continually moving, continually trying to gather data points, but also improve on what you do will save you a lot of grief and heartache.
So I want to touch on something that, first off, for the most part, I don't recommend this for like 92% of entrepreneurs out
Perfect.
there. I know.
Let's document it.
But I think that's important to point it out for 2 reasons. One, it's a prime example of how to test against analysis paralysis and make sure you're not getting caught up in that.
Okay.
And 2, to let businesses know that this is a difficult tool for small businesses, and that's pay-per-click.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't endorse pay-per-click for most small businesses.
Right.
It's not a bad form of marketing. It's a very, we're talking about data-driven decisions, and we're over here saying, go ahead and get a couple referrals and, talk to your customer and find out what they want, and kind of just jot it down. There's so much more scientific than that. And the problem is that businesses go in and they don't understand the full science behind it. It's very complicated and very difficult to dial that in. Now, those who are able to dial it in, it can be very effective, but you can't dabble in it. And,
right.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up as an example is because I think it's a great way to look at, whether you really are doing data-driven decisions or not. So if you've ever done a PPC campaign, it'll slap you in the face and let you know if you are really using data or if you're just kind of out there guessing. And so it's good in that sense, but
yeah,
it's a little bit more advanced than your average. If you are very analytical, if you enjoy that challenge, if you have the aptitude for that,
and you want to research a bunch,
yeah,
on what all of the algorithms are and how they're constantly changing, right?
Right. And if you've got the patience to fine tune and spend the time on it, this is a long game type approach. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about with analysis paralysis. But here's the correlation that I want to bring in, and I'll kind of wrap up my thoughts with this, and that is that, so with analysis paralysis, when you've got pay-per-click, you're getting immediate feedback of how much money you're losing. And so it's telling you to your face, oh, that sucked. Yeah. And you can burn through you're just like, okay, I'm just going to do, a conservative $500. And it's like, whew, gone. Whoa, I thought that was conservative. I mean, like, you can burn through money on PPC really fast, right?
Yeah.
But think about it this way. The same thing applies. You just don't get the immediate response of, if you are not making data-driven decisions in your company as a whole, you're burning through that kind of money and not realizing it.
Yeah.
Every time you're making a poor decision because you were too lazy to actually test the market and see if customers like what you offer, every time that, you hire someone without really doing your due diligence to see if they know what they're doing, every time that you gloss over your P&L and your balance sheet and don't take the time to analyze that, you're failing to make a data-driven decision. And it's the same thing as the PPC, is you're just like taking some money and throwing it out the window. You're like, I don't need this $1,000 today.
Yeah.
And those things add up. And at the end of the year, you've wasted $50,000, $100,000, I mean, and it adds up that quickly. And so that's kind of what I'm going to wrap up my thoughts with, is to just say, look, take the time. Yes, it's a little tedious, but it's so worth it. And that's what successful companies do.
Absolutely. And so for me, the advice that I would give to small businesses who are looking at, improving their decision-making processes is start with where you are, right? Start with, what's your current process for making decisions? And then look for the ways that you currently gather your data points, whether that's completely numerically and quantitatively, or if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum and you're qualitative through and through, right? Identify how you go through that process. And then I would take a serious hard look at how you can tap into, how you currently tap into your target market. What sales have you already made? And can you complement a quantitative process with a qualitative process, or vice versa? Or do you need to bolster one or the other, right?
And I love the fact that you point out that they're both important.
They are. They absolutely are.
You can't ignore one or the other, and there's not one that trumps the other.
Absolutely. That's
whole other episode right there.
A whole other conversation for sure. And the last little tip that I'm going to throw out there before we wrap this thing up, because this could go on for a while. Sure. This is gold. I feel like I could speak for both of us here. We are big fans of the soft launch, right?
Oh yeah.
And so if you feel like you want to move and you don't want to wait for more data points, so you're not stuck in analysis paralysis, or for whatever reason, if you feel like you need to get something going without fully committing, consider a soft launch of sorts. Whether that doesn't necessarily have to be a product or a service. That can be a decision, right? We're going to change our pricing structure. Okay. We're going to put something together. We're going to reach out to this one customer who acts sort of as an advisor and get their thoughts, right?
We want
things like that.
We want to hire this guy, but we're going to contract with them first for a couple weeks
to give him a project to do.
Yeah.
See how he turns it around.
And the soft launch, that's smart.
So
I like it.
Anyway, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. We love it. We love being able to have conversations that you guys value and get something out of, because we certainly do as well. So, please feel free to reach out to us. Keep letting us know what you guys think about these. Any questions you have, we'd love to address those, do episodes and such, and subscribe if you already haven't, and we will catch you next time.
Take care.
Take control of your business today. Go to LearnDesk.us and search Marketing Management and Money for the small business insights you've always wanted. Be sure to stay tuned for new episodes on the first and third Wednesdays of every month, and make sure to subscribe to be notified when we release bonus content such as interviews and short discussions.